You're listening to the Mermaid Podcast here on WPOD-FM, Mermaid Radio. I'm Gary Guppy, and we hope you enjoy today's program.
Welcome to the Mermaid Podcast, where we dive deep into the magical world of mermaiding and all things aquatic. I'm your host, Mer Ashera, and these are my co-hosts, Sierra Mermaid, and the merman who's already gone through 4 boxes of chocolates, Merman Nathaniel.
Whether you're a seasoned performer, hobbyist, or curious adventure seeker, this is the place for you. We'll be highlighting our fantastic community and what we're all about, making magic and living our best mermaid dreams.
Today, love is in the water. We'll be talking about romance in merfolk mythology and media, stories, tropes, and the origins of merfolk as symbols of love. Don't forget to follow us on TikTok and Blue Sky at the Mermaid Podcast, and join the pod on Discord to connect with our community, linked in the description. If you like what we do, please consider donating to our coffee to help us continue the podcast. Let's dive in.
Welcome back, everyone. Sierra is absolutely right. There is love in the water. I hope you guys have been feeling the vibe this February of Valentine's Day coming up. I hope you guys have a special someone, or even if you don't, friends that you love. Maybe you're going out to a Galentine's thing, or what's the version for guys? Nate, do you know?
About you, but I've been feeling real freaking cold this February.
That is true. Over where we are on our half of the US, we've been experiencing extraordinary amounts of snow. So it has been a little bit hard to find the warm, lovey feeling.
As of recording this, it is currently 0 degrees Fahrenheit outside.
Yep, I got in my car this morning after my night shift, and my car read -1. So, that was really nice to walk out into.
New York is such a great state.
That sounded like sarcasm.
Oh, really? What do you think?
Alright, so for our episode today, we're going to be discussing just the way that our folklore and fantasy about mermaids has had such an impact with its love stories and how they've transcended time. They have always captured our imaginations in that way. Love, longing, transformation. I mean, the first thing you think of when you think of sirens is some poor bloke of a sailor, like, getting lured out to his death because he thinks he's in love with her because of her siren song.
I mean, with how long they were typically at sea for, I'm pretty sure they'd be desperate for anything at that point.
This is true.
I actually was so excited in a this is hilarious kind of way when we brought up this episode because of the fact that Christopher Columbus genuinely believed that the, sirens were sirens and not manatees. And
Yes.
I did find the journal entry for this episode. It was stated that the admiral was going to the Gold River. He says he saw 3 sirens that emerged at very high seas, but they were not as beautiful as they were painted, and that their faces were somewhat masculine.
That's
I mean,
incredible.
Who says that a siren can't be a man?
This is
You know?
true.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, we see how these stories of sirens being like real creatures, which, you know, I'm not discounting. They could be out there. We don't know. Stories get started from a bunch of desperate dudes seeing literal animals and
Yeah.
just seeing what they want.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, men. So But, like you mentioned before, when you were reading that quote, they were talking about how sirens were portrayed. So even before they came to the Americas, particularly to Florida, to Manatee Land, there was origins in mythology. So across various different cultures, merfolk appear in art, in writing, in all these different forms. Sirens, selkies, mermaids, nixies, and each of them, in each culture, you can kind of find stories about love and loss and all these things that merfolk are said to represent for us. And they often explore themes of boundaries being crossed or transcended despite all odds by featuring a merfolk falling in love with a human or a human falling in love with a merfolk. And they've become stories of, especially lately, as we've talked about in previous episodes, with our culture wanting to err more on the happy ending side of stories, they've become kind of a symbol of like love against all odds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that way that you put it. I feel like originally they did start out as just a way to explain why sailors weren't coming home. They fell off the boat crashed. But in the modern time, we've turned it into such a positive transformation, which I very much embrace. I mean, I love a good man-eater, don't get me wrong, but I also love when we are able to show a softer side as well.
I very much prefer that myself.
Yeah, so if let's talk about some specific cultures that had these merfolk painted in a romantic light. The Greeks had their sirens, and of course we talked a little bit about how Greek sirens were sometimes not depicted as fish women, but as bird women that kind of tricked their victims into thinking that they were beautiful women out by the sea, and they were pretty seductive and dangerous. Like, they were not, I don't think there were any happy endings unless the sailor was squishing the beast, so to say.
We also see sirens in Homer's The Odyssey. They were literally putting earwax in their ears to go past the domain of the sirens because it was so dangerous to even hear them at all.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's kind of like the origins of the siren song. You know what I mean? Like this tune that you just can't help but fall in love with to the point that you would go to your death to hear it.
The original yearning men.
Yes, these were the original yearning men, even if they were yearning against their will.
Exactly.
So, I mentioned earlier about Selkies. So, our Norse and Celtic Selkies, they were seal folk who were said to transform into humans, and like they would often fall in love with people on the land. And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't giving a Selkie her skin back, isn't that seen as some like huge romantic gesture?
So
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, I think I remember reading a story, maybe it was a little comic that I saw, and I can't remember who created it, but of course I was just scrolling on my very merfolk leaning algorithm, and I'm pretty sure it was a comic, but it was like, or it was a story idea, I think. Yeah, it was a story idea. But it was a Selkie that had gone into like a bar or something and put her skin like on the back of a chair and then like was out with like humans, and then the guy like thinks it's her jacket and like is a gentleman and goes to like pick up her jacket and help her put it on and then hands it to her, and she's just like, yes, I'll marry you, and he's like, what?
It's funny you mentioned
Real.
that, actually, because I'm currently in the midst of reading a book at the moment. It's a book my dad gave me for Christmas. It's called By the Dark of the Moon by Kay Stevens, and that actually deals with a Selkie who is kind of reluctantly paired up with the moonshiner up in the state of Maine in the 1920s. It's really interesting because, like, not to like spoil the book or anything, but like in the very beginning, he does find her child and their seal skin, and so the Selkie has no choice but to essentially kick the guy's wife out and live with him now. And you kind of get the impression that like the marriage is kind of like they don't really like talk to each other like romantically. They're kind of reluctant in each other's presence, or at least the Selkie is reluctant in the Moonshiner's presence. But yeah, that's kind of an interesting take on it, I'd say. I still need to finish the book at some point. We'll have to talk about this book
Maybe for book
on the
club.
podcast at some point. Yeah, perhaps.
But that story does bring up kind of the different takes on merfolk romance, even within individual cultures, because I just presented it like I've seen it in a positive light. But there is that negative light where actually in most tales, especially older ones, a Selkie's skin is a symbol of her freedom. So she would shed it for various reasons, and a human would come by and steal the skin and hide it, and it would trap her on land, and it would trap her in human form and basically force them into marriage. It does raise questions about consent and captivity in love stories, just the different things that these stories can represent for people. Like maybe for this one, like yearning for autonomy and freedom, whereas in the one that I presented, where the skin is seen as like a grand gesture, a bit more of a positive light, maybe symbolizing like true love, or I don't know, just like grand gestures, like finding your other half.
I'd say like Selkies, at least to some degree, I feel they represent familial love more than like actual romantic love, because like there is that aspect. It's not just they're like they're marrying somebody and they like live together happily ever after, but no, like they raised kids together, and there is like that familial aspect to it. There's almost like a motherly sort of thing going on there.
Yeah, we for sure advocate for consensual marrying Selkies. But yeah, those lines, we have those older stories, maybe sometimes even ancient stories, but they play a huge role in our current culture and how we deal with merfolk romance as a popular theme in books, in movies, in TV shows. I definitely think the portrayal of these kinds of stories has changed a lot.
Absolutely. I think that one of the turning points was honestly probably Hans Christian Andersen's story, The Little Mermaid, because instead of the sailor being the one to sacrifice, the Little Mermaid was the one who made that big leap and in turn had to sacrifice herself to save who she loved. And it wasn't just about the attractiveness of the person anymore. It turned into their soul and what that connection, what you would do for that. I mean, there is a history of a theory, I should say, that the story is based on a love that he himself was yearning for, specifically with another man, and the way that it could not be exactly the way that he wished for it to be. Now, I'm not a historian, so I don't exactly know all of the details, but it's a theory I've seen multiple times.
Yeah, for sure. And we talked about that a little bit in our December episode when we did a deep dive into Disney's The Little Mermaid, which definitely takes a more modern take on these mermaid romances. It ends in a happy ending. There's always like, you know, the introduction, the struggle, but you always know it's going to end up in a happily ever after. I think that's become a staple of Disney, taking these older films and rewriting them to be a little bit more kid-friendly, yes, but
And of course
Yeah.
you got other films doing something similar, like Splash before it. Like the romance in that movie was like the whole driving point, not just for Madison, but for Tom Hanks's character as well.
For sure. And we will
Yes.
talk about all of those stories when we come back from our break.
You're listening to WPOD FM Mermaid Radio. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Need a pick-me-up after a tiring day of work? Try a bucket of popcorn scallops, new from Atlantic Joe's. Deep fried and battered to perfection with a savory gut wheat sauce? They're sure to pop in your mouth. Pick up a combo with fried kelp and an ice-cold Arctic Cola today.
Tired of looking for a new or used jet ski that won't break the bank? We've got you covered. At Shark Ski Lot, we've got what you're looking for. Find a new or used jet ski that'll fit your needs. From Hondas to Yamahas to Sea-Doos and more. No credit? No problem. We'll set up a payment plan just for you. You can swim away with your jet ski as soon as today. Shark Ski Lot, located off the coast of Cape Cod in Massachusetts. My name is Barney Shark Sr. Come on down!
All right, and we're back.
We were going to talk about our modern mermaid media and romance's role in that, I suppose.
Right.
You were talking about the romance between Daryl Hannah's character and Tom Hanks's character in the movie Splash.
Yeah, and that was, as I mentioned, that was like a huge driving force for the plot. You know, the whole idea that, you know, Tom and Daryl's characters, they're like madly in love with each other. And as much as Daryl Hannah wants to stay, she knows that she can't. She's on a... It's like alluded to that she's on a bit of a time limit in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like she's trying to make like the most of their time together as much as she can before she has to go back.
Yeah, I watching that movie. We actually watched it on the pod a few years ago because I bought it on YouTube because we couldn't find it streaming anywhere. But yeah, that definitely was a bit of romance, but it was also a little bit humorous. It was definitely a romantic comedy in my opinion.
Oh, not even a little bit humorous. Like, a lot of the humor in that film is just amazing. You know, not only, like, do you have, like, Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah in that, but you've got John Candy and Eugene Levy as well, two SCTV alumni who are, like, some of the most hysterical actors, not only in that movie, but in SCTV as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say, like, I would agree with you there. Like, the romance and the humor are definitely, like, very intertwined with one another.
Yes.
Where it feels like a lot of their romantic shenanigans do kind of, in some kind of comedic twist, whether it was because of something Daryl Hannah's character did, or if it's some kind of misunderstanding that gets Eugene Levy's character, like, smacked in the face.
This film definitely started to popularize. It came out 5 years, if I'm doing the math correctly, 5 years before Disney's The Little Mermaid. So it definitely started to popularize mermaid romance in mainstream cinema with more of a lighter tone and not we're gonna dissolve into sea foam now and die alone.
I wouldn't be surprised if the success of that movie was what like got the Little Mermaid greenlight in the first place.
True.
I think we might have discussed that in the December episode. I can't remember. It's
We
not December
discussed
anymore.
a lot. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There was another movie. This is quite a bit of an older movie. It came out in 1948, but I remember watching this with you, Nate. It's Mr. Peabody and the Mermaid. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, that one.
That one?
That one had some really interesting romantic themes in it. It was kind of interesting because, like, the romance between the human and the mermaid in that film, that really wasn't the whole focus, I would say. It's more like it's a reflection of the man's marriage, essentially. Like, he's
Yes.
using this mermaid to reflect on his own marriage with his own wife.
It definitely, his encounter with her definitely changes his, like, outlook on his life and love. And I think that's pretty par for the course for movies back then. I mean, they're not going to be as overt as maybe they are now with especially romance and just basically any intimacy on screen. I think the romance in this movie was basically very metaphorical and more about fantasy and escapism, and the mermaid as more of a symbol for things in his life.
Yeah, definitely. And there was another movie we watched. It was the British movie where this mermaid is like completely messing with everybody's love lives because like the men are falling head over heel over her.
I remember that one. I can't remember at all what the name was.
Right. Do Google.
Tumor Google.
I don't know.
Oh, you guys look that up. Going back to Mr. Peabody and the Mermaid, I just want to mention that the, like, tail practical effects, like, for the tail were fantastic. Like, they were really good. I remember being very impressed by that tail. I'm pretty sure it was a silicone tail.
Yeah, it was like a precursor to...
It was very nice.
Yeah, I believe that was what would later inspire Eric Ducharme, the Mer Tailor.
I can definitely see that.
Here it is. It's Miranda.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's what it was.
There we go. Yeah, I remember now. Miranda. It was a cute mermaid movie, I'd say, but more so on topic. That was another one that kind of dealt with romance in, I'd say, a similar way to Mr. Peabody and the Mermaid in a way, because I remember by the end of the film, a lot of the men just sort of like snapped out of their trances with the mermaid in question, Miranda. They kind of snapped out of it and they realized, they were already happy with the woman that they loved, and they feel like they kind of took them for granted, and so they like try to make an effort to patch things up by the end of the movie.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, I'm seeing they came out in the same year.
Oh, no kidding.
So, 1948 was just a very mermaidy movie, I guess.
Alright.
A mermaidy year is what I meant to say. 1948 was a very mermaidy year.
Oh
Yes.
yeah. I feel like another good time for mermaids was the early 2000s, the
Yes.
Y2K era.
Yes,
That was
absolutely.
an iconic time for mermaids. And honestly, the one romance that was truly a romance for me was obviously H2O, because
Yep.
man, Lewis and Cleo, they were quite the couple. I feel like everybody our age thinks of them first, obviously after Eric and
Oh
Ariel.
man, they
For
got
sure.
put through the ringer in the second season.
They did.
I know. And I have a super unpopular opinion about this, but I feel as if for a majority of season 2, like at least the first half,
Mhm.
people only disliked Charlotte because she wasn't Cleo.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Yep.
can
It
see
wasn't
that.
until after she became a mermaid that she really became a problem. Because I know that if I walked into some girl's house and she had pictures of my grandma, I'd be like, how do you know my grandma?
Yeah.
And that was like
no,
everybody's problem with her.
When I got older and rewatched H2O, I was like, maybe I was overreacting a little bit. But then she becomes a mermaid, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember why I hate her.
Yeah, and then even then it's like, but that power was supposed to be split between 3. What if really it was messing with her head? You know what I mean?
True.
Well, I feel like we did start to see a bit of her problematic personality, like even before she became a mermaid. Like, I don't know if it's because
She was jealous.
Yeah,
But like,
she was-
what teenage girl isn't?
yeah, jealous, but like, I don't know. I feel like some of her actions were just taken a little too far. Like, granted, Cleo was like trying to move in on quote unquote her man. Ugh.
Yeah. She broke up with him, so
That is also true. We have to keep this in mind.
yes.
Yeah, but like you said, when she eventually did become a mermaid, that's when things like really started to.
That's when
know.
she became an actual problem. Beforehand, she was just another teenage girl, and those girls were not too nice at first.
I'd say like the episode that kind of convinced me, like, okay, maybe these two aren't like really good together was the episode where like Charlotte was like hosting a birthday party for Lewis, and she
Oh,
invited
yeah.
like all her friends but none of his friends, and he just like wasn't
Yeah.
really
Only her
jiving with
music,
anyone.
only her food. Yeah, that was the one for sure that it was like, okay, she's really a lot more self-centered.
H2O definitely came up in like a golden time where it had the opportunity to present this mermaid story where I don't even think you can really say that romance was like the main component of it. It was definitely more focused on like friendship and sisterhood and magic and just the general like teenage experience. I think it was a lot of metaphorical for the teenage experience, but romance did play a huge part in this show, and I think it did very well with the amount of runtime that it had and the actors that it had, presenting each of the romances in a very realistic way to the like Y2K teenage experience.
Yeah.
But you know
And-
what teenage movie did have a huge emphasis on romance? Aquamarine.
That is true.
Yes, I was just going to bring that up, but that was honestly one that came out very similar to H2O as well in the end, at least. Because, I mean, she was all over her man Raymond at first, until the curveball at the end that the emphasis and the love was between a sisterhood that had been created.
Right.
And I think we would be remiss also to talk about this, and we talked about Cleo and Lewis, but let's talk about Ricky and Zane for a second. I'm sure everyone has feelings about this.
Big time feelings.
I honestly got way more attached to them than I did Cleo and Lewis, because Cleo and Lewis had the whole, like, childhood friends thing going on, There wasn't a ton of, like, will they, won't they? It's just, like, stop being stupid and just kiss, But
Yes.
Ricky and Zane, my God, they both had to go through such huge character developments to even begin to think about a relationship, because the beginning of the show, Zane is definitely an antagonist. And even in like the whole arc with the red herring episode where Emma dyes her hair and it's red and he's hunting for this mermaid because she rescues him, and he's like, this red-haired fish lady saved me, like I need to find her, and everyone's like, Zane, go to a psych ward.
He is like the epitome of like lovers to, or no,
Enemies to lovers.
enemies to lovers. Thank
Love
you.
a good
Yes.
enemies to lovers.
I think that's where my enemies to lovers started, to be honest, because I remember watching it, especially when I was in high school, and I was like, oh my God, I love them so much. Like, by the time we get to that scene where Ricky, like, they're kind of like this on again, off again thing, like, because she doesn't know if she can trust him and all this other stuff, and he shows up at the moon pool while Ricky is, like, stewing, and then they finally kiss again, and I'm like, yes. But then in season 3 he becomes a real biatch.
Yeah, that
Yes.
I found that kind of interesting because I don't know. In a way, I guess it's just like showing that sometimes it's just really hard for people to like actually change. Like we saw a little bit of his bad boy personality was still around in the second season, but then like third season comes around and it's still it comes back in like full force essentially, and then it becomes like really problematic, not just for him but like the relationship with Ricky as well.
Yeah.
I think that season 3 was one of the weakest when it came to romances. Like Zane in season 3, like, who is that? Like, what? It was crazy for them to shift him even further back than he was in season 1 and make him outright threaten this girl that he claimed to love. But then on top of that, we also had Bella and Will, which he didn't love Bella as a person the way that she wanted him to. He loved her because she was a mermaid. And honestly, I feel like the writers made him so much more interested in the personalities of Ricky specifically. But he didn't care for Bella's personality that way, and it almost felt like they wanted Ricky and Will to somehow end up together, but Zane was in the way and Bella needed a love interest.
It's funny you mentioned that he only loved her for being a mermaid, because it's going to be very relevant to our next topic coming up soon.
Yes, it is. So, to close this out, I mean, obviously all the most famous mermaid romance stories of the modern age are going to be primarily films and TV, just because I think mermaids are a very visual aspect, but there's tons of comics and books. I mean, there's mermaid romance books out the freaking wazoo. Like you were talking about the Selkie book you were reading. So yeah, there's honestly too many, and I'm not even that entrenched in comics and mermaid romance books at this point to discuss any specific ones, but for sure do not discount those media forms.
If you guys have any that you would like to recommend or talk about, feel free to comment about them.
Yes, feel free, comment your favorite mer romance stories, whether they're TV, film, books, comics, if they're on Wattpad, I don't know, whatever the kids reading these days.
AO3.
Or fanfic.
That's
AO3.
the way now.
Yes, the way, the truth, the light. When we come back from our commercial break, we're going to be discussing the whale in the room, and I guess you're going to have to come back to find out what that might be.
You're listening to WPOD FM Mermaid Radio. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Do you have jewelry that's falling apart? Are you tired of the high cost of repairs? Hi, Gilly Bays here for Pearl Putty. The fastest, easiest way to repair jewelry, guaranteed. Glues and other adhesives are messy and leave behind unsightly residue. But with Pearl Putty, simply mold it and stick. It's that easy. Howdy, folks. Gary Guppy here, founder and owner of WPOD FM. You see, when I formed this station back in 1978, I did so with one simple goal in mind: to bring good quality public radio to sea and land dwellers alike. And thanks to listeners like you, we've been able to do just that. If you'd like for us to continue to do what we love, then please consider donating to our Ko-fi page. A simple $5 donation will not only ensure that our lights stay on and the equipment keeps humming, but you'll also get early access to segments from the podcast, as well as a shout out in the next episode. So please, from the bottom of this old fish's heart, I want to thank you all for tuning in. Now, back to our programming.
Hi everyone, this is Mer Ashera in post. I just want to say this next section is going to have a little bit of a trigger warning on it. We are talking about merverts in the next section and dealing with topics like sexual harassment, internet safety for minors, and other things that people might find hard to listen to. Protect your mental health. We do keep it PG-13. We don't go into much detail about anything. It's all appropriate, but just protect yourself. You can skip to 57 minutes and 24 seconds to get to Community Corner. Thanks, guys.
Okay, so before we went to commercial break, we did hint at the whale that is taking up a lot of space in this room right now, and we would like to introduce the whale to all of you and just share what we're thinking.
Gonna be talking about merverts.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes.
I feel like it's
the barnacle-covered whale in the room.
Yes. I feel like it's impossible to have a discussion about mermaid romance and all this stuff without talking about without at least shedding a light on this sleazy side of it. You know what I mean? Especially as members of, like, the real-life merfolk community. Like, maybe these issues aren't as much of an issue when we're talking about just engaging with fictional content, you know what I mean? But when we're bringing real people into it, or fictional content about, like, children, or, like, you know, we gotta talk about these things. We have to be open to discussing these things, and I think it can be healthy to talk about these things in a, I guess, what am I trying to say? Like a professional way? I don't know. Like in a supportive way.
In a way that brings awareness to something that a lot of people may not even realize, because sometimes these people are very, very sneaky with what they're doing.
Would you like to explain?
You've got to have kind of a trained eye to even understand that those people are trying to prey on you sometimes, as unfortunate as that is to say.
Yeah. Nate,
Would you like to explain what a mervert is, Ash, for the listeners who may not know?
yeah, so mervert is kind of this hybrid word that was created that combines the word mermaid or merfolk, the beginning of it, mer, and pervert. So mermaid, pervert, mervert. There's the math. It's pretty simple. But it is referring to individuals who sexualize mermaid imagery or the identity of being a mermaid in the mermaid community in ways
Actions.
that are considered inappropriate, exploitative, or unwelcome by people in the community. So this isn't just people who have a mermaid fetish. Like, you know what? We're like go into the whole like kink shaming thing. Like, you like what you like. You know what I mean? But
I was
when
about
it
to-
starts to affect real people against, like, without their consent, this is when it becomes a problem, and this is when you become a mervert.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up. Like, you know, all in all, there's nothing wrong with having a kink, really. Like, everybody has one. Even if you don't want to admit you have one, you probably have one, even if it's a really tiny one. As long as it's not, like, problematic or just the weirdest freaking thing anyone's ever heard, there's nothing really wrong with it. That being said, it doesn't really belong in this community. Like, just keep that to yourself, please.
There is one thing that is very, very sneaky that I think we should bring up that I see specifically from one individual very, very often. I've had them myself in various platforms of mine. And I'm sure that you guys probably have too. Even the listeners probably have too. I know that I've seen this person a lot in spaces. It is a person who seemingly, at first glance, you would think is just asking for advice on keeping your eyes open underwater, how you do it, and everything. That person is trying to get you to explain something for his fetish. He has a fetish for eyes being open underwater. I don't know what it's called. I don't want to know. Not yucking and yum, but that person I know very often preys on the.
I'm not sure if I've gotten.
He's a big time mervert.
If I've gotten comments from that
Wonderful.
individual specifically,
Wonderful.
but I have gotten comments from people asking, like, how do you keep your eyes open underwater? Does it hurt when your eyes are open underwater? What does it feel like when your eyes are open underwater? And in my first year mermaiding and posting videos on YouTube, I did respond to those comments, and now I feel weird about them because I've learned since that I am a victim.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've definitely got some interesting DMs in the past as well. I've had one guy message me saying, and I quote,
Oh my
"How's
God.
Daddy's
To
favorite
jail,
merman?"
To jail.
Oh
Uh,
God.
I've had people try to roleplay with me in DMs, which, to be fair, if it's like a fun adventure sort of thing, like, I'm not opposed to that, but if you're doing it just to, you know, get in my fins, so to speak, no,
Yeah.
please no. But,
Yeah, people can be very upfront and uncomfortable because when you're in this space, sometimes
Mhm.
they kind of disregard the fact that you're not just the costume,
It's dehuman.
Oh.
or you're not just somebody performing an athletic thing. They now believe that
Yeah,
you're
it's
kind of
very
an object
objectifying.
versus the person that you are underneath those things.
and that's what brings me to my next DM here, which I don't care if this person is listening to this. I'm not going to say their name. I don't even think they even listen to this podcast, but I've had this guy on and off come into my DMs, essentially just making small talk with me, and he's just kind of really freaking boring to talk to, if I'm being honest. Like, he'll just, like, say, like, hi, how are you? And then I'll be like, oh, I'm doing okay. I'm just, chilling, playing some Fallout, talking to some friends on Discord. And, I'll just, like, say some things to kind of, like, liven up the conversation, make myself interesting. And all he'll reply with is just, oh. Like, that's it. Just, oh. Like, alright, sorry that I tried to make this, like, an interesting conversation. But on occasion, he would, like,
Oh god.
he would tell me that he was, like, horny or whatever, and that he was, like, into,
Stop.
I don't know what it's called, like,
Yeah.
dog play or whatever. Something like that. I think
Puppy
it's, like,
play.
the
I think
fetish
it's
where,
puppy
like, you wear,
play.
like, a dog mask and you walk around. I don't know.
Not to yuck your
I think-
yum,
yeah,
but
that-
like,
yeah.
don't
But
include consent.
here's
Like,
a-
that's this whole thing. It's about consent. It's like, you can enjoy whatever you want, and you can seek out people who are into the same things as you, and do whatever you want to your heart's content, but you need consent. And these merverts are not getting it.
But that brings me to my point, in which I think I might have cracked the code here. I think I know how to get them to at least leave me alone.
What have you done?
How to get merverts to leave me alone. And that's just to be really nerdy. And I mean, like, extremely freaking nerdy.
It's so funny, the different ways of handling it, because I will simply, if I do respond at all, I take the more, I guess, kind of bitchy approach, and I will just tell them exactly what they're doing. Like, I don't allow them to hide, and they're kind of beating around the bush.
Oh, that's what I've done with this guy. Like, I've told him, like, he was just, like, straight up boring to talk to, because he wouldn't, like, engage in the conversation at all, other than to tell me that, he's got a stiffy or whatever. But,
Drop a good old don't care, didn't ask on there.
But back in December, he tried to talk to me, right? And here's how the exchange went. Hi, handsome. And then I reply with, hi, with a very, like, passive-aggressive period. He goes, how are you? And keep in mind, I was playing Warhammer 40k Darktide at the time. I kind of went through, like, a bit of a Warhammer phase during December. So I replied to him with, I have been cast into the 41st millennium. I have been sentenced to death for going against the will of the God Emperor of mankind, but I was given a second chance when our prison ship was boarded, and I was saved by the captain's life. I saved the captain's life. Now I serve her and her superiors in an efforts to cleanse the planet Atoma Prime of heresy and the Chaos God Nurgle, the likes of which the Astra Militarum nor Space Marines have time to deal with. I killed for the Emperor, but perhaps this was my death sentence all along. Since then, nothing.
Yeah, that's one way to
Has
do
not
it.
tried to talk to me at all.
There is definitely... No, sorry. Go ahead.
I've even said on socials, next time, some of you listeners may have seen this, but I've said on socials, if somebody tried doing that stuff in my DMs again, I'm just going to hit them with the Sergeant Dornan speech from Fallout 2.
There's definitely a lot of ways to respond to merverts, getting in your DMs, getting in your comment sections. The best things you can do is turn on comment moderation, either where, I know on Instagram you can set it to automatically delete comments that have some keywords or are not from people that follow you, etc. YouTube, similar situation. Set your DMs to, like, only mutuals, or like filter them out into a like spam versus like mutuals thing. That's how I have mine set on Instagram. So often I don't even see these DMs until months later, and by then the person has gotten bored and realizes I'm not going to respond to them. And obviously that doesn't work all the time. Some people are very persistent in wanting one specific person to respond to them because they've gotten very attached to your persona that you're portraying online. But that's the risk of posting online, and we just have to use tools that are provided to us and strategies that we talk about in these types of education and awareness discussion. And And another thing is supporting communities and places that have a zero tolerance policy for these quote unquote merverts. Yes, so like our Discord server, zero tolerance. I have dealt with so many of them. So many freaks of nature. But they get the banhammer. So
I've said this before, but I am so glad that our server, the pod, is like so aggressively PG-13, because like the day I like wrote that comment in the pod, I was like watching like a Deadwing Dork stream about like someone who was like getting into some like Discord drama where they were like grooming minors or some shit, and like, or you know, I didn't mean to say shit there. Let me start over. When I made that comment, I was watching a Deadwing Dork stream at the time where somebody was getting into some drama about like grooming minors on Discord, and like just hearing some of the vile crap that they were admitting, it just like made my stomach churn, and I was just like looking at like all the countermeasures we have on the server. You know, we have like that whole authentication process and like the zero tolerance policy we have, and I'm just like breathing a sigh of relief, because like there's like so many servers out there with like less people than ours that have like way worse moderation. So
and
I'm
even
just
servers
really
with
happy
more
we're
people with
on top of things
moderation.
like that.
But I mean, the same thing goes for Facebook groups. I think the biggest thing
Yes.
for me since becoming that person that has to deal with these people has been believe victims, believe them, just, you know, like, believe them. The chances that they are lying are very
Correct.
slim, and they're usually
Keep an
obvious
air out,
if
yeah.
they're lying. So, I mean, things are very easy to miss, and then they become a bigger and bigger issue just because you dismissed it because you didn't think it was true. We've had people who became like good friends of people in the community, and it turns out like there was one, I'm not going to name names. If you know who I'm talking about, you know who I'm talking about. But there was one who became good friends with a lot of people in the community, and it turns out they were taking pictures that minors had posted in our server that weren't explicit, but they were of them in like mermaid tails, and they were taking them and sharing them in an like mermaid porn server. Like, that's disgusting. And even if it's someone you know really well, yeah.
We did some
I should go to
amazing
law
detective
school.
work on that
That's
one.
all I'm saying.
It's so unfortunate because it's something that, I mean, the internet is a relatively new place, as is. I mean, it's gone in the relatively short span of time that it's been in existence, it's grown exponentially. And unfortunately, these are things that we all, even personally, or if we're moderating something, we've had to learn it due to some sort of experience, or because, oh, I know my friend over here got groomed this way, I need to do it, I need to prevent this from happening in the future with my own server, or anything like that. Or even just us talking about an experience that we had and why we have to have, you know, keywords filtered on posts, or we have to have message requests on. Like, it's an unfortunate truth that a lot of research and even own personal afflictions have to go into these things. So hopefully this can be a decent warning for somebody who's a bit on the newer side. You know, don't be afraid to block people.
Yes.
They don't have to have access to you at all.
Don't be afraid to block people. Keep an eye out for red flags.
Don't be afraid to
red
ask for help.
flags at that.
Yeah, and look out for each other.
There's always someone in the
Yeah,
community.
yeah,
I mean,
especially.
like,
Yeah.
me, for example, I will go to bat for anybody. Like, anybody. I don't even have to know you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, always like get a second opinion from somebody if you're unsure if this
Especially
person
if you're a
is
minor, and if you
behavior
are
is
a
like a
minor
red flag,
and
you
you're
know?
engaging in the merfolk, like the
Absolutely.
online merfolk community, please be careful. Don't share, like, which I know, like, the nature of our hobby is, like, we're swimming, right? But don't share too, like, revealing stuff. You are a minor, okay? Like, I get it, but there are weird people on the internet. It's very hard to hear. It's very hard to say. Like, I
It's
know
hard to hear,
bodily
but
autonomy and all this stuff, but you are a minor. You do not need to have a public-facing account that is not run by, like, a public-facing account with your face and your body on it. You don't need that. That is asking for very bad attention.
yeah, take it from people who are only relatively a few years older and grew up in a
Yes.
very similar era and probably made those mistakes.
Private your account.
You don't do it. And it's okay to tell an adult. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. You're scared. You don't want to be in trouble. But the thing is most parents, while they may be in shock at first and may unfortunately direct some of that onto you, it's not your fault. Either way, it's not your fault. But
Yes.
they will do what needs to be done. They'll help you, is
Yep.
the fact of the matter.
You know what I think is like the most unfortunate thing about the whole mermaid pervert fiasco? This is like a very largely like female dominated community, and rightfully so. Being a mermaid has largely always been like a female fantasy. But the thing about it is like it's supposed to be like a place where people who want to live out that feminine fantasy can feel liberated. You know, like that's like the whole reason. That's like how I always saw the whole reasoning behind like, oh, this is why like we wear like bikini tops, shells, and whatnot, because like it feels liberating. You know, you're not like confined to like having to wear like a shirt or whatever. You're not confined to like having to wear something conformist. And it just feels unfortunate that like there are people out there, not even just on the internet, but people who will like actively go to like mermaiding gigs or whatever, and essentially like turn that around it and sexualize it. And it's just infuriating to me, because it's like, you know, we're not doing this to pleasure somebody in that way. We're doing this essentially like for ourselves. We're doing this to like feel, to like get lost in that fantasy, to escape reality. That sort of thing just like happening at mermaiding event or even online is it just like briefly snaps you out of that fantasy, and it's just infuriating to me.
Fortunately, it's because of it being, like you said, a more feminine space that it happens. It's basically, it boils down to, you know, misogyny. Not to get, like, I'm a very feminist person, not to, like, really hammer that down or anything, but that's the truth of the matter. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's unfortunate because, like you said, it's about being able to be fluid and being able to be free. I mean, even in a more broader sense, people will say, oh, I want my hair to be mermaid length. And they just mean they want it to cover their boobs. And that's fine. It's a way to say long hair. And there's nothing wrong with that until, you know, you have somebody come into a space and saying, why are you
Okay,
wearing a
bye,
top? You should
creep.
have
Yeah,
mermaid
like
length hair."
makes my blood boil,
You know.
honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very upsetting, you're right, to see how things can be turned around that way when you're just trying to embrace another side of things, something more whimsical, something maybe even a little bit more feminine.
Yeah. Like even me, like I think I've said this in the past, like I've kind of embraced this because it's helped me with like body image issues in the past. You know, like before I donned a tail, I absolutely hated how I looked. You know, like I'm skinny as heck. I've got like hair all over my body. If anybody's seen me at IRL, I've got like really hairy arms. I got like a really hairy chest, a really hairy back. It's ridiculous. I'm like a couple inches of hair away from becoming Bigfoot, essentially. But you know, it just feels disgusting to have somebody like look at that and look at something that I see as like affirming, something that I kind of look at and see myself as beautiful, and just have them just like come into my DMs
Yeah,
and
like,
be
get
like,
out.
"Hi, sexy winky face."
Yeah. Yep. I think that mermaiding is something that helps a lot of people with body image, but that's something that somebody like that, a predator, will always take advantage of, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to all do our best to not allow that in spaces, which I think that as a whole the community does as well as they can. I think that we, for the most part, it is done very, very well.
There's a Facebook group I'm a part of, and I'm sure you two are a part of as well, called
Oh, yeah.
Mermaids Beware.
Love it.
Yeah, so if anybody listening to this wants to get into mermaiding and they want a resource to look out for the kind of people we were talking about,
For sure.
that's a good place to start, I would say. You know, it's just it's a group that is just full of other merfolk just giving warning signs, essentially, like saying like, hey, this person is selling like AI images for like $400 or whatever. They're not real tales. Don't buy from them. Or, oh, this guy asked me for videos of me like, I don't know, farting in my tail or whatever, and
So,
just
in
avoid them.
conclusion, like, I know that was a rough talk for everyone. I'm probably going to put a trigger warning before this section in post. But I think what we can take out of this is that it's up to us to protect our online spaces and curate our online spaces and be supportive to anyone that has experienced any harassment by individuals that we would refer to as merverts, or just anyone in general. Like, just don't harass people. Like, just don't. And if people are, don't be afraid to hit that block button, and don't be afraid to call them out. I mean, come to us, we'll put them on blast. Yes, but yeah.
Absolutely.
On the
It's not
podcast,
something
obviously,
we're
but
afraid
yeah.
of. We've kind of been around the block, but just be careful on the internet. Be careful in real life. But that's all you can do. Life is going to come with risks. You just have your best to be educated, and don't be afraid to talk about these things with people that you trust. Trusted adults, trusted friends, trusted family. Yeah.
Yeah, because those people, they're hoping that you're not going to say anything. So protect yourself, protect each other.
Keep calm, keep swimming on. All right, I think it's time for Community Corner.
Exactly.
I'm going to put out another blast for artist volunteers. This month's art was done by me at the time of recording. It has not been completed yet, but I hope you guys like whatever I come up with in the next few days. Yeah, but if you want to be a part of our creative fam, Merfam, you can fill out our little forms that are linked in the description below. Our artist volunteer form is in our link tree. Our voice actor volunteer form is in our link tree. I am not sure. Yes, still on the voice
Still on the
actors.
lookout
We
for
have
voice
featured
actors.
a bunch of people in the past. I'm not entirely sure at the time of recording who is getting featured this month, but woo, go them if we feature people. So if you want to get involved that way. And then another way, if you are on the Discord server and you want to help Nate write commercials, if you are witty and fun and think well on your feet in writing narratives or just like commercials, like little witty one-liners, really apply there and you can help us out with writing commercials. I mean, that's a huge, big creative push that we do, is our commercials and our art. And hopefully we'll be starting some bigger projects sometime in the future, Nate?
My co-writer, that guy, and we have been cooking up some really good stuff, not just for the podcast, but some backer exclusive stuff as well. So keep an ear out for those in the coming months. But besides that, we also have our usual stuff. We've got game nights and game streams every Friday, Chico's art streams every Monday. We
Talking
did just
about it on
open
here
a
for
movie
forever.
club finally. So, yes, Ash and I finally got around to opening that up. It's still in its infancy. We don't have a lot of people in it. If you're listening to this and you're a member of the pod, if you want to do like movie nights and stuff, I highly
Vote
recommend
on
you go
movies.
join that club. I've
Hey.
got some fun stuff planned for that.
If they join the club, they can vote on the
What's up?
movies. Because anyone can come to the events. The events are everyone's welcome. But if you want to say in what goes on in the events, join the club. And if you want to just meet more like-minded people.
Yes, exactly. But aside from that, we also now have a Facebook page as well. We just started that sometime last month. We are gonna link it in the description down below. So if you guys are on Facebook, you want some updates from us, or you otherwise just want to see some little funny posts, some little like lore tidbits on the little underwater world that we live in here, just go give us a follow.
Thanks for joining us for this month's episode of the Mermaid Podcast.
Next month, we'll be taking a much-needed break to recover creatively, so we'll see you in April for our next episode.
As always, don't forget to get on your shell phones and follow us on TikTok, Blue Sky, and now on Facebook at the Mermaid Podcast. And join our wonderful Discord community. Happy splashing!
We'd like to thank our coffee donors that have made this month's episode possible: Ariadne, Isla, and Elizabeth.
If you enjoyed this month's episode and want to hear more from us, consider donating to our coffee, linked in the description. Every amount counts and helps pay for our recording software and maintenance fees. Without our coffee donors, we couldn't do what we do. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you.
This has been the Mermaid Podcast here on WPOD FM, Mermaid Radio. I'm Gary Guppy, and we hope to catch you all next time.